and also spiritually. So you have to know that as a pastor or as a parent, the children that God gives you, whether they are spiritual children or they are biological children, you have to raise them not for yourself, not unto yourself, but unto the Lord. Remember, they are a heritage from the Lord, for the Lord. They are not for us, they are for Him. So we must raise them in the way that the Lord wants them to go, in that purpose for which God created them. It means each and every one of those children, you have to give them prophetic names, especially as a biological parent. And if they are a man of God and you realize that this child was given a wrong name, you can even change the name of the child. I've changed many who were answering a wrong name. So we have a responsibility as both biological parents and spiritual parents to raise children in the faith, to raise them in the way of the Lord, to help them to know the Lord and continue in the way of the Lord, to love the Lord, to train them how to pray, to train them how to give, to train them how to tithe, to give God His portion every time they have money. That is why when you are tithing as a parent or giving, the children must see you doing it. The Bible says there are two ways to it when it comes to giving. The Bible says your giving can be private and also public. You know, when it is private, it's between you and God. When it is public, is when you are actually educating others to follow suit. Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. So you can tell that sometimes Paul will do things before the eyes of his children in the faith so that they can learn of him. You see, Paul didn't have biological children, but he had a lot of spiritual children, a lot of sons, and one of them was Timothy. Another one was Titus. He raised them in a very godly way. He raised them in the doctrine of Christ, and they didn't depart from that way. They didn't depart from it. So as parents, we have a high responsibility of raising children the right way, not allowing them to be vulnerable to the enemy. You know, the other part in Proverbs 22, verse 7 now, verse 6 says, train up a child in the way that he should go. He should go. So that when he is old, he doesn't depart from it. It means if you have trained your children very well, even if the enemy can try and take advantage of them, maybe through friends or through whatever, at the end of the day, they'll remember that they were not brought up that way. They'll continue in that way. So you have to train your children how to work also, how to do stuff at home, how to serve in the church. They must not just be a number. You know, the Bible in the book of Proverbs teaches us about hard work. The Bible says the hand of the diligent will make somebody rich. And then in 2 Thessalonians 3, verse 10, from verse 6 to 10, the Bible says the one who doesn't work must not eat. So even at home, especially when the children now have come of age, or they can now do certain activity, but you start training them as young as they are to do certain tasks in the family, to wash certain things, to wash their own socks, to wash their own underwears, you know, to do some chores in the house, in the home, you know, teach them some things as young as they are, and then some of the things will observe you doing it. You know, teach them to love God, teach them to respect the elderly out there, because they will also see how you respect men of God, how you respect other Christians. Don't speak bad about other people in front of your children. God doesn't want it, because, you know, they'll begin to inherit certain curses. They'll begin to inherit wrong things from you as a parent. So as parents, when we do whatever we do, we have to be careful that we don't, you know, we don't transfer spirits to our children. We don't make them worship idols. You know, a lot of children, when they grow up now, they want to worship idols because that's how they were brought up. Others, they want to have, you know, more than one wife because they've learned from the parents, which is not the way of the Lord. Some people don't even understand that polygamy was never the will of God. Never the will of God. In the perfect will of God, there is no polygamy. God, under his general will and acceptable will, he can accept it, but he doesn't like it. That's why any family that was polygamous in the Bible didn't have peace. You look at how Solomon was turned away from the Lord because of these many women, and how David also, his family, started conflicting because of many women and many children, that were from different parents. So we have to learn that polygamy was never the will of God. That's why in the New Testament, where we see the perfect will of God being revealed to us, the Bible says if somebody is ever going to be a leader in the house of God, he must not be in a polygamous relationship. He must not be a man. He must be a man of one wife, not more than one wife, because that's a bad example to the flock. So you can tell that polygamy is not the perfect will of God. He can accept it because man is a free moral agent. Man can choose what to do. They can even choose against the will of God. So let's understand that polygamy was never the will of God. So as a father, you have to be faithful to your wife. You are teaching your children faithfulness. You must not do dirty stuff before your children. You must not live a wayward life as a father or as a mother. It affects your children. The Bible even says, they say children must obey their parents. That is their part. They must obey their parents. But they must be taught what obedience is. They must be taught respect. And then the Bible doesn't end there in the book of Ephesians. It says also, chapter 6, verses 1 to 4. It also says that the fathers must not provoke their children to wrath. They must not be provoked. It means don't tell them to do something that you are not doing. Don't tell them, for instance, that they should live a pure life in terms of how they behave. They should not mess around or be promiscuous. And then when they look at you, you are cheating on their mother. You have side chicks as a father. What are you teaching your children? You are teaching your children that having one woman is not enough. You are teaching them to cheat. It's not supposed to be so. So as parents, in whatever that we do, we have to be, responsible. We must know that our children, they learn from us. We shouldn't allow other people out there to teach our children wrong stuff. We must train them to discern between right and wrong. We must train them to also know what kind of friends they must keep. The Bible tells us that bad company corrupts good behavior and good motives. So you teach your children to avoid such friends. You teach them how to behave at school, how they should respect their teachers, respect the elderly in the community, that if they're on the bus and then there's an elderly man, they must not sit down when there's an elderly man or elderly woman who's standing. Even when they go to the bank, when there's an older man than them or older men than you, you show them that you have to give preference to the older man or the elderly man. When you do that, you are teaching your child the right way, the way of respect. The Bible says we must honor the elderly. So as a parent, when you all honor the elderly, you are actually teaching your children, you are actually training them. Part of the training is observational. They look at the way you do things. Even on television, the kind of stuff you watch on television, you're actually, training your children to access such information. You are telling them this is not wrong. Even if you're watching pornographic, movies, pornographic stuff, as parents, God will hold us accountable for the outcome of our children, how they come out, how they become, because if we raise them wrongly, we teach them idolatry, we teach them that even if you can cheat, it's okay, even if you can rob other people, it's okay. It shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be. It's not the will of God for children up that way. So when we say train up a child, it means train up a child in the way of righteousness. Train up a child in the way of faith. Train up a child in the way of purpose. What is the purpose of God concerning that child? You know, what was that child born for? You know, the child shouldn't just do anything. He must be raised for a specific purpose. You know, like for instance, in the Bible, we see that many godly families, I'll use the family of Jacob and Amram. Amram was the father of Moses, and Jochebed was the mother. And then they had 3 children. One of them was Aaron, there was Miriam, and there was Moses. Moses was said to be the youngest, but he became a leader. Now, because of the faith